Hey guys, what's up? It's Zola, and today we are going to be discussing combining some of the techniques we've learnt so far to do something a bit more useful. Now, there's plenty of tutorials for doing this on the internet, but I thought I would cover it because hopefully I can show you a couple of things that maybe some of the other tutorials don't touch on. I mean, I'm sure they are, but again, this is more about combining some of the techniques we've learnt so far, some of the tools, because so far I've just been teaching you tools and not really taught you any practical applications for a lot of the things we've been learning. So first thing I'm going to do here is point out this is an image I shot of my friend Scott. This was for his modelling portfolio, and Scott's, even though he's a good looking lad, his skin here has lots of problems. If we zoom in to 100%, there's some stubble rash down here, and so there's, you know, like no picture. We had no makeup artist on the day, so I decided to fix a lot of this in Photoshop. So what we're going to do is call this, I'm going to double click here, call this original, and then afterwards we'll be able to compare the things we've done. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this, so Control J, and then I'm going to call this skin fix. Spot tool, just so as we're going along people know what I'm doing. So I'm going to come up here to this tool, and we're going to go to spot healing brush, make sure it's on content aware, and we're going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is just take rid of some of the bigger problems. So like any big spots we have, we're going to fix all the smaller details and the more general stuff later. But you know, even stuff like this hair here, which, you know, it's not a problem, but you know, if we wanted this thing to be completely clean and flawless, it's easy to just go over and fix some of these imperfections. This area is more a general area of rash, so we're going to deal with that another way later on. So yeah, you know, we're just going to find any kind of little spots we can fix, like easy, like gimmies as I call them, because they're easy to fix. And let's say that's all right. So we have before and after, you know, a few little spots here and there, nothing too radical. So I'm going to duplicate this now, and I'm going to duplicate twice, and I'm going to call this top one texture, and I'm going to call the one underneath it I guess difference, because what we're going to essentially do is soften his skin and bring all these highlights and texture onto one layer, and then we're going to bring like the blotchiness of the skin on another layer. That might seem confusing right now, but bear with me. So what we're going to do is, first of all, come to the bottom one. We're going to go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. There's different types of blur, but Gaussian blur is the nicest for kind of adding a soft blur, and somewhere around 3 is good. We're just basically trying to hide the imperfections on the skin and create a difference between this and the top layer, because we're now going to make a new layer out of the difference between these two. So what I'm going to do now is come to our texture layer, which is obviously, if we look at it, just the original basically, but with me having fixed some of the spots. So I'm going to go to a new menu, which I've not shown you yet, which is actually really useful for a few different things. Today we're going to use it to do frequency separation. So in the source, that will be right, we're going to select the difference layer, come down there to difference. From blending mode, I'm going to hit subtract, because we're subtracting the difference between these two layers. Where's subtract? There it is. For the offset, I'm going to bring it to 128, there or thereabouts. It seems to be a good overall. And for the scale, probably somewhere like 1/7, maybe 2. Let's just do 2, in fact. But yeah, these seem to be like the universal settings that seem to work well on like raw pictures. So what we've done now is, if you remember, if I hide all these, I showed you how to make a high pass in one of the lessons when I was going through the filters. And I'm going to do this real quick, so just duplicate the original, go to filter, it's in other, and go to high pass. So as you can see here, we're essentially creating a similar kind of effect here, but the difference is this one is based on a more custom value. So what this allows us to do now is, if I turn them on, so if I turn difference and texture, We're going to change the texture to linear light, and we should, if we group these two together, Command G, essentially see no difference between our new group, which is the texture and the difference, and the old photo. So as you can see, as I'm hiding and unhiding this, nothing's happening. So this is good in a way, because what we've managed to do is separate our texture, which is this, onto one layer, and our difference onto another layer. So what this allows me to do now is, if I get the blur tool on here, and I'm going to put the strength right up. Again, there's a couple of ways of doing this, but if I just begin to, in fact, where I might even do it with the lasso tool. So I'm going to knock the feather up to like 30 maybe, and we're going to come to areas where we kind of see any kind of blotchiness. So let's look maybe around here. If we come here, and if you hit Q, you can see the area I've got selected. Maybe that's not quite big enough, so I'm going to go a bit larger and do Q there, and that seems pretty good. And what I'm going to do is apply the Gaussian blur, so blur, but we're going to blur this like right up, and I'm going to hit like maybe like 27, and we're going to delete, and we're going to come here where we have a problem again, and now I can just hit Control F because it's in my most recent filters. And yeah, we're just going to try and find any areas with kind of any blotchiness. Just hit Control F. Here on the cheek, we've got it a bit. Control F. And as we can see, we're making him look slightly more feminine. This is typically a technique used for retouching women a bit more, because you want to give them like beautiful clear skin, but you know, Scott is quite effeminate anyway. So as you can see here, what I've done is, by making the blur quite extreme, we're getting like really strong results. So you know, if you don't want it this clean, you can always kind of knock it down. Let's see what happens when we do it in the beard. You see, not so much a great idea in the bearded area, and as you can see here, we have kind of like a bit of a problem. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to turn the mask on, and I'm going to bring my brushes up, and you know, this is a good technique if you get into any spot of bother, and I'm just going to like feather this out by adding a mask. If we just hit Alt on the mask here, you can see where I'm painting it in, and so yeah, I'm just going to soften that area there, and then we're going to come back in here, choose our lasso tool, and let's just again feather this out. And so if we have a look now, before and after, you can see obviously we've done a horrendous job by softening way too much here on the neck. So I'm just gonna kind of, especially around there, just lightly brush just to bring some of that texture back. And but yeah, especially if you look here around the face and whatnot, you can see here there's quite sorry, what I should probably do is hide before and after. So as you can see here, we're fixing a lot of the blotchiness. We've still got some on the nose, so let's fix that. Come here and hit Control F. There we go. So there we go. We've got some nice clear skin, bit blotchy there. And again, you can fix this to taste. And then now what you can do is we can work on this texture layer. And if we come to our clone tool, where's our clone tool? Clone tool, here we go. Again, if we have a look at this, we're going to start cloning. So if you remember, if you remember, cloning allows you to pick an area and basically copy it. So if I just pick his eye here, and we're going to make sure this is on current layer because we don't want to do anything below, I can essentially duplicate his eye. Now, why does this come in useful? Well, basically, if I come back here, if there's any areas where we're getting too many highlights, we can always sample an area with no highlights. So let's just say maybe we don't want all this texture here, so we can just I'm going to alt click to an area with like less texture, like here, and then I'm just going to paint over it. And as you can see here, we're softening that area. And I can do this anywhere, especially here where it's kind of like we've got a big problem. So I'm going to choose an area here where we have like zero texture, and I can paint over, and that and that allows me to just obviously a problem is if you go into an area that has no texture. Again, what I'm doing here is just lightly softening it. So I don't recommend you do it too much. If not, your picture will end up looking too soft. But if there's anywhere where you feel like the details are too harsh, like maybe here, you can always like alt click and then just soften it up a bit and just paint with texture from other areas. Likewise, if you want to bring some texture to like maybe the nose, we can sample an area here that does have texture and we can paint that on. Obviously we've just given him hair on the nose there, so be careful. But yeah, that's so that's it for like softening the image. So let's have a look at our before and after. As you can see here, the change is quite radical. Now he has beautiful skin and looks like a little baby cherub. And what we can do now is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to hit shift backspace here, fill it with grey, change this to overlay, and now I can come to dodge and just brighten up any areas I want to brighten up. Maybe here, maybe we want to really make like the eyes pop, so like really brighten the area around the eyes. He looks kind of demonic now, but you get the idea. And if we come to burn, we can then like bring some of the bring some contrast back in. So maybe like put some here in his beard. Just basically dodge and burn as you see fit. So kind of add some texture and some life to his face. Maybe just bring a bit of that kind of stuff there, and his forehead, just maybe here around his hair. Just to kind of paint some yeah, I'm really freaking out about how much I've made his eyes. Eyes white. So again, what I'm going to do is, if you go too hard, which I have, just make a mask, just paint it back into to how much you want. Maybe I just wanted it in fact around the eyes here, around this nice kind of white hot spot, which I recommend trying to get. And there you go. We have, let me drop this into our folder here so I can, so here we have the final image and before and after. So as you can see here, we've fixed the skin quite drastically, given him like, obviously like if you take this effect too far, it might end up looking like an anime character or something, but that may be what you're after. But definitely some useful tips hopefully, and yeah, I will see you in the next lesson. Thanks for watching, goodbye. Hey guys, one more quick tip that I forgot to mention here is we can probably do something about his teeth. He's got his teeth here really yellow. So what I'm going to do, there's loads of ways to do this. This is the way I've done it. I don't know, there might be a better way. I've never really watched too many Photoshop tutorials, but the way I do it is I'll try and so I'll make a new layer, and you know, you can make like a rough selection of the teeth with the wand tool. So I'm just gonna do that here. Obviously I have the wrong layer selected. Well done, James. So let's try selecting the layer where we have this information, and again I've probably selected the wrong layer. I'm going to select the original and just try and do it on here. So we're going to auto enhance, and we're just going to try and get a rough selection for his tooth areas. Let's just say that's kind of roughly right, and you know, like no big deal if it isn't. I'm going to come to this new empty layer which I have, and I'm going to press B to select my brush, and I'm just going to paint some like white. Now I'm not going to be too precious about this, and we're going to hit undo, and you know, what I can do now is double click in here, and we're going to choose this blend if, and I'm going to alt click here and bring this in, and as you can see, as I bring this in, this is blending the darker areas back into the image. So I'm going to bring it in to the point where like things start to look more normal, and then I'm going to grab the left side here, not necessarily holding alt, and as you can see here, it allows us to make something of like a rough selection, and I'm going to hold alt and soften that out a bit, maybe bring that in there, and I'm going to hit OK, And there you have it. You know, because the areas here are lighter than these, the blend if basically using this slider allows you to select darker areas and not show through the things that you've painted on this layer, which in our case is pure white. And then if you want to go in and like fine tune it, you can always add a mask and paint in. But yeah, I mean, I've gone a little hard here, so like maybe you can I've added again, you know, once again a mask, and I can like slightly just paint over it to bring back some of that color. But I don't want to do it too much because I kind of like the way that turned out. So there we go. His teeth are a bit maybe Colgate white, but you know, if we brush that in again, if I had this before and after, you can definitely see how something like that could come in useful. And yeah, thanks for watching, and this time it's definitely goodbye.